Hello? Yeah, it's Gimmick. Yo, what's up, Nindeviled? Wait, slow down. You want me to find the most difficult NES game for player one guy? Let's see. Player one guy, I hope you packed a lunch.
Swamp Thing for the NES, made by THQ and Imagineering. Growing up, I never played this one, and I was never really into the comic books or animated series. The first I ever heard of this game was actually an episode of IUPG over on the LJN Defender, and he had an interesting comment about this game's reputation.
Here's what's considered to be one of the worst entries in the NES library: Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing is an enigma, which is fair to understand once you realize that there are multiple writers who have reincarnated this character throughout the DC universe. Created by Len Wein in 1971, Swamp Thing originally was an anthropomorphic plant material that combined with a human that was about to die and was reformed into a monster. There are different humans that have been known as the Swamp Thing, but the most popular and adapted choice seen throughout film and video games has been Alec Holland. Swamp Thing, however, has undergone various changes in the comics, and things got trippy when Alan Moore took over. Swamp Thing is actually just this conscious plant life form that discovered the dead body of Alec Holland and tried to become that entity, and eventually became the defender of the Parliament of Trees, an elemental community in another dimension called the Green that connects all plant life on Earth. So Swamp Thing is not really a humanoid monster, but a being of pure energy connected to this hive mind of nature that can control all plant life like a power similar to Flash with the Speed Force. But this is like the plant force? Much beauty is in the swamp, if you only look. Swamp Thing is legit op. He is an avatar of the green and has even mastered all the elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. With your powers combined, I am Captain Swamp Thing. Abilities include super strength and plant material manipulation. Swamp Thing can move his entire consciousness through the plants, control other types of alien plant life, and can regenerate at will. Swamp Thing is popularly known as a hero for the Justice League Dark, and often teams up with other heroes like John Constantine. However, Swamp Thing should be more classified as an anti-hero, since he's like as if PETA and the EPA birthed this creature whose only will is to unleash its Cthulhu-like wrath on whoever disturbs nature. When it comes to protecting the green, Swamp Thing will kill anyone who threatens its destruction. Who would even win in a fight between Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy? Neither. In one iteration, they fall in love over their mutual respect of the opinions towards plants and the protection of nature. That's like Swamp Thing's thing. Despite his friendship with Constantine, Swamp Thing would join Superman's side in Injustice because he thought Batman was bringing heck onto the planet, which was a big no-no against the Green. Swamp Thing will mess anyone up that threatens the Green's chill vibes, so don't mess with the Earth. Greenpeace? More like green violence. As for the game, this guy Dr. Holland made some formula that has to do with accelerating plant growth, which we kind of already have that in real life, and then this evil dude who looks like the bad guy from Overlord, or maybe Deadpool, blows up Holland's lab, and Holland ends up covered in the formula stuff as his burning body runs off into the swamp. The formula makes his body react with the surrounding organic matter, and so he became Swamp Thing. Is it possible he's just covered in the swamp stuff? Okay, so hear me out. Why is he Swamp Thing? He's no longer a man? Look at all the mans out there. Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Iron Man. There are plenty of characters with man, woman, boy, or girl in the name, or even a prefix like Captain or Doctor or something, but this guy is relegated to Swamp Thing. Not even Dr. Swamp Thing. I guess when he transformed, he lost his degree. Anyway, evil guy Wrinkleface realized he didn't steal enough of the formula. Maybe he shouldn't have blown up the lab, bro. And so he dispatches one of his cronies, or unmen, to capture Swamp Thing. And so as the game goes, you just control Swamp Thing. One button jumps and the other one does the attack. Standard controls, and they got the jump correct. This is very important because, as we will see in other THQ games, the jump is not always done very well, and so we are jumping over enemies and dodging fish. The enemies are placed perfectly to keep you from just blasting through, and Swamp Thing's walk cycle is painfully slow. You'll be doing a lot of jumping to speed up the scroll rate. I like how trash is falling repeatedly from the sky as if a plane is just dumping its recycling out in just this one spot. Oh, and you can also ride a gator's head. It's a good idea for an amusement park ride, just saying. In the next section, weird face statue things have eyeballs that jump out at you, short dudes try to skewer you, you have to make pretty big jumps against haunted chasms, dodge witch doctor skulls, hop cauldron bubbles, avoid bouncing skull things, and shoot a soundwave snake before being chased by a skeleton. There's also this part where you have to walk and jump over the hot coals. Why can't he just go around the top or the bottom? Why does he have to go over the coals directly? The next area is looking really scary, with phantom ghost dudes and jumping cement heads, floating brick platforms, and weird purple bird things. And you go into one of these chamber things, which take you underground with dripping fire flames. There's even a hand coming out of the wall to take you back out. And you do such a good job that later on the wall hands are applauding your efforts to help you get back above ground. Thank you. A bit later we get our first boss fight with Dr. Weemo. I can't help but point out that Dr. Weemo was sent to capture Swamp Thing, but so far it looks like we went after him. Had we stayed put, we wouldn't be fighting him. Anyway, he floats around, you punch him, and if you don't, he splits into 4 and then just repeats the process over and over. After beating him, Dr. Arcane expresses his displeasure and announces his intent to assign a different crony to capture Swamp Thing by luring him to a chemical factory. And this guy's name is Weed Killer. I guess they didn't want to call him Roundup or something. Once we make it to the chemical factory, we are greeted with disgusting conditions. Green drips, waste water, electric security jerks. The platform jumping is certainly a bigger issue here, jumping from handle to handle with these semi-garbage controls, and it wasn't until this level that I discovered you can actually walk faster if you hold the buttons a certain way. It's weird to try and describe, so just trust me. With additional misfortune, this is one of those levels where you get to ascend up before working back the other way, with the risk of falling to a previous area always looming over your head. Or maybe under your feet. The boss of the chemical factory is the weed killer guy I mentioned before. He moves from left to right, shooting pesticide, presumably. Sometimes it seems like he is shooting at the Swamp Thing, and other times it's like he's just shooting randomly. Use the platforms to hop up and punch him a handful of times, and then Dr. Arcane gets mad that he's down to his last unman named Skin Man, whose skin looks rather reptilian. You know, perhaps this makes for a better origin story for Reptile. In the next level, we get to pummel green bird things, which look like they come from Joe and Mac, coming up in the next episode, FYI. Jump over blue undercarriage clampers, leap over blue Beetleborg things. No, not those Beetleborgs. Also in this area, we can use Swamp Thing to inhabit trees and make them drop stuff. The tree looks like a couple of green eyes, kind of showcasing his abilities that we backstoried earlier in the episode. While this section is pretty easy, in the next area, which looks like some form of apocalypse, the plethora of enemies becomes a bit much. It's tempting to just take damage just so you can get temporary invincibility and rush through. Then there's this one part where you can inhabit an apple and roll around as the apple. And then you can inhabit a flower, which gives you your health back. I'm not going to bite a flower. Creeps. When it's boss time, you can take over the trees and move back and forth, dropping green whatever it is on his dumb head. This is by far the easiest boss fight in the entire game. After that, Dr. Arcane basically says he's going to transform himself. Alright bro, if that's how you want it. So now we are in Arcane's lab, which wants to zap us. You have to work your way up and 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 up. Feels kind of like Cool World's last stage, and then we have to go over. This part takes a while and definitely has a where do I go kind of vibe. Fighting Arcane is pretty easy. Dodge the electricity and avoid the fire and punch Arcane. After enough hits, he flies off. In the ending, Swamp Thing states he's no longer Holland, and the swamp is beautiful, blah 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 blah. You know, I'm not loving this turn of events. The story was supposed to be about Arcane and his crew going after Swamp Thing, but the gameplay and ending make it seem like more of a revenge story? I don't know, whatever. Overall, this game is difficult. Very difficult. The challenging part is the platforming, especially in the second and fourth stage. The bosses aren't too bad, it's just getting to them that is tough. So, kudos to you if you've ever beat this thing, but let's take a look and see what Swamp Thing got from that IUPG video.
In the case of Swamp Thing, I rule that the verdict is guilty.
Oh, and the cartridge is really expensive too.
on this. So I tried it again. I figured, well, this time I'm going to try to use the buttons, instead of the arrow key. So I started to move over to it. And then I was moving back and forth, and jump. I was able to get it, but then I realized I couldn't really move. So then I had to switch back to the gamepad. I'm moving on the directions. So I tried just jumping, but you can't get over things unless you use the direction pad. So I jump, and then switch over. Tried it, and so I kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. But still, every one of my attempts were unsuccessful.
Hey everyone, instead of music here, I thought I would just comment on the LJN Defender in the IUPG channel. That channel has been inactive for a long time, however the videos are still up and very fun to watch, and definitely served as inspiration for the Nindeviled Egg series. I have no idea if the creator involved will ever stumble across this video or this channel, but if so, thank you.